What's going on, everybody? Good late morning. Hope you guys are still doing well on this Wednesday as we continue to wait for the big game on Saturday. But before we get there, I want to take a video to talk about another end of season award that is going to be handed out sometime in January. And I want to talk a little bit about not just one, but two Seattle Seahawks that I believe should be considered for this award. So we're talking about a fairly recent award. This is one that's only been around for about 12 years. The AP, which is Associated Press, NFL Assistant Coach of the Year. So this is one that started getting awarded in 2014, and basically it seeks to award the best assistant in the league. And as you can see from the listing, ever since it's been around, it always goes to either a defensive coordinator or an offensive coordinator. So there is a clear bias here, I guess, but at the same time, the bias makes sense because these are the guys with the biggest impact. All right, guys, let's take a minute so I can tell you about Sleeper, a one-stop shop for all your sports needs. You can celebrate and chat on sports games in real time with other users. You can get the fastest scores, blazing fast sports news and sports alerts right at your fingertips. And of course, you can use Sleeper to play in fantasy leagues and win real money on picks contests. This is the way sports were meant to be enjoyed together. So download Sleeper today. Use promo code SBN to get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. And you can pair that with another promo they have right now where you can get a $20 entry free with no deposit required. So get both of those things going. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 25 states and growing. So check out Sleeper today. Get to it and go have some fun with sports this year. You can see that Todd Bowles won it the first time as a defensive coordinator, Wade Phillips, Kyle Shanahan, Pat Shurmur. Basically, they take a look at a lot of years where a particular team's unit performed at a really high level, maybe a surprisingly high level, and they award it to the coordinator who is considered responsible. And also, typically, it'll go to somebody who actually calls plays and manages that side of the ball. If the head coach is known to be the play caller, then it's a lot less likely that the coordinator is going to get credit for it. It all makes sense. And I think that all of these award winners so far, they make sense. Well, this year, Seattle, I believe, should have not just one, but two candidates. And I don't know if either is going to necessarily win it. I know that there are a lot of really good assistant coordinators on other teams, but let's talk it through here real quick. Let's start with the obvious one to me. And I know that this is going to be mildly controversial at this point because there's a lot of people who are consistently complaining about him in recent weeks. But let's talk a little bit about Clint Kubiak, the offensive coordinator for Seattle, since offensive coordinator is actually a ranking that has won this award in recent years. So you go back to 2024, last season with Ryan Grubb, you had a Seattle offense that ranked 18th in points scored. They ranked 18th in points scored, so about average, slightly below average if you want to be technical. But it was not a great offense. It wasn't even really a good offense. And during the offseason, the team traded their quarterback for a draft pick. They traded their number one wide receiver for a draft pick. And they didn't really go out and spend a ton of money on offensive players in free agency, right? I'm not saying they did nothing. They did go get Cooper Kupp, but Cooper Kupp has not been the big linchpin of their offense being better in 2025. They did go get Sam Darnold, and he's been great, but at the time, that was not considered to be some slam dunk home run move by the Seahawks front office. So even that was something that a lot of people looked at and went, I don't know if this is going to work or not. I didn't think it was going to work that well. I thought it was going to be okay, but I wasn't overly excited about that. And look at what has happened in the year since. 2025, Seattle currently ranks second in the league in points. Now, part of that is the special teams and defense scoring a lot of touchdowns. We have like 7 touchdowns that are non-offensive. So you want to shave it down a little bit, sure, but every other team in the league is also getting special teams and defensive touchdowns. They're still going to be in the top 5, even if you take away those touchdowns. This is still an elite offense in terms of points scored. Now, there are other considerations as well. We are not an elite EPA offense. I think our offensive EPA this year is like 13th. Yardage-wise, we are not that close to the top either. So there are some things going on here. But if anything, I would argue that just makes what Kubiak is doing more impressive, because he's found a way to make this offense ultra efficient without putting up a ton of yards and without being traditionally elite. We're close to 30 points a game, and this offense drives us nuts in the first half most of the recent games. So there's a lot to be said for what Kubiak has done here, because, again, they didn't import a bunch of new talent. They swapped out quarterbacks that ended up working out really well, but Sam Darnold is not Josh Allen. They traded away their star wide receiver and effectively used the pick that we got to replace him with, depending on your perspective, either 75% of Nick Emanwari, who's a defensive player, or Elijah Arroyo, who's basically done nothing. So however you decide to look at it, if you want to say they replaced DK Metcalf with Cooper Kupp, I mean, he might end up with about 600 yards on the year. Not like he's come in here and been dominant or anything like that, at least not on the field. Maybe you can argue some stuff off the field, but there's no argument to be made that Cooper Kupp has come in here and on the field completely boosted this offense from average to elite. They upgraded the offensive line by having Abe Lucas all year and also bringing in Gray Zabel over Laken Tomlinson, but it's not like the offensive line has been great, right? Gray Zabel hasn't even been that good. He's good for a rookie. That's about as far as I can go. And this is an offensive line that we hope will be better next year, but this year it's better than last year, but not by as much as it looks. It looks a lot better than it is because of Kubiak. So yeah, I think Kubiak should be on this list. This is a big turnaround, and it's not something a lot of people would have expected. Now, my second thing I want to submit here, and this would be a little unconventional, but I was really concerned about this guy in the offseason, so I think it only makes sense that I need to make sure I give this guy a lot of credit here. Let's talk about Jay Harbaugh here. Jay Harbaugh, special teams coordinator for Seattle, I think should be on the short list for assistant coach of the year. You go back to the end of last year, and this is a Niners X account, but it takes a look at EPA on special teams for the entire year of 2024. Yeah, Seattle is in the negatives. Seattle has one of the lesser, not by much, they're 19th out of 32 teams. They have a negative EPA on special teams. So they have a below average unit. I think we all remember the special teams unit last year. Some of the stuff they did in that game against the Jets. They had at least a couple of fumbles on special teams as well. They did have one kick return against the 49ers. But for the most part, it was a very forgettable special teams unit that wasn't really helping the team win. Part of the reason why the team didn't make the playoffs, and part of the reason why a lot of people, myself included, wondered if it would be a good idea to move off Harbaugh in the offseason. The team decided not to. They kept Harbaugh as the special teams coordinator, and look at what he's done. He's rewarded us with by far the best special teams unit in the league, EPA of almost 70 with one game to go. So this has been a massive source of the turnaround in Seattle. It's a more than 70-point swing from last year, and you better believe those 70 points show up a lot in the team's 13-3 record. So, yeah, I know that a special teams coordinator has never won it before. I know that it might seem a little unconventional. There are probably coordinators out there that are, well, plenty, that are technically more impactful because offenses and defenses play more. But it's hard to imagine a bigger turnaround than this, and it's hard to imagine anything going on here that's more meaningful than Seattle going from a negative EPA to the best EPA in the sport at the unit. I'll call it the unit because special teams is a lot of things: kickoffs, punts, coverage, field goals made, extra points made, et cetera, et cetera. So very, very cool stuff going on here, and it needs to be called out. So yeah, to me, that is another guy who probably belongs in this conversation. And again, this is from somebody that I didn't really want this season, a Harbaugh. So when the results are there, the results are there. And some people might say, well, he was responsible for being not very good in 2024. Why should we give him credit for learning? But I think this turnaround deserves merit. I don't think that we can, and in hindsight, with what we know now, can we really blame him all that much for the bad special teams play last year? Seems pretty obvious at this point he just didn't have the right players. And now he has the right players, and look at what he's doing. All right. I'm going to go ahead and get on out of here, but I think both those guys should be on the short list. I don't know if both guys should win. There are definitely some really good assistants out there, but with the turnaround that these units have experienced and with the fact that it's resulted in a team that is possibly going to be the #1 seed and the Super Bowl favorite going into the playoffs, I think that there should be some real consideration here. All right, I'm going to go and go. See you guys later. Go Hawks. More videos coming later. It is Wednesday. Could be a little bit of a slower day, but I will find things to talk about. See you guys soon.